Good morning, my name is Lamont Jenkins and I would like to speak to you today about the United States of America war on drugs and how it is failing. Today I will talk about how much the war on drugs costs, the effects on society, and possible solutions. The war on drugs is a prohibition campaign undertaken by the United States government with the assistance of participating countries, intended to reduce the illegal drug trade, to curb supply and diminish demand for certain substances deemed harmful by the government. This includes a set of laws and policies that are intended to discourage the production, distribution, and consumption of targeted substances. The war on drugs could be considered to have started in 1880, when the U.S. and China completed an agreement that prohibited the shipment of opium between the two countries. The United States alcohol prohibition from 1920 to 1933 is the most widely known historical period of drug prohibition. The term was coined in 1971 by Richard Nixon to describe a new initiative designed to enhance drug prohibition. Did you know that it takes only $200 of coca to yield $50,000 of cocaine? That's official. It is in the United Nations report on drugs. Another worrying statistic is that a kilogram of heroin in Pakistan costs nearly $3,000, but sales in the U.S. for $130,000, it pays to be a pusher. Worldwide, the international drug business generates as much as $400 billion annually. That amounts to 8% of all international trade. 3/4 of all drug shipments would have to be intercepted to affect the business. We can only estimate that we intercept 13% of heroin shipments and 30% of cocaine shipments. The cost of our society is staggering. This is true not only in human terms of suffering and violence, but also to individual countries. In the year 2000 in America, the Clinton administration, as a detailed and national drug control budget, spent more than $17.9 billion on the drug war. 60% of those costs were due to drug-related law enforcement, incarceration, and crime. These figures suggest, in the most graphic terms, that the drug war is not being won. They indicate that it cannot be won. Any amount of money being thrown at the problem of illegal drugs is being dwarfed by the profits made. There are more drugs now on the street than ever. The lessons that we learned during Prohibition seem to have taught us nothing. Anything given over to criminals and gangs to run is going to have a detrimental effect on society. The well-documented side effects of drugs have been so often repeated. Addiction, dependence, and death are made much worse by illegality. Contents of drugs are being cut with dangerous variety of substances, which never are intended for putting into human veins or lungs. Who would normally ingest sand, talcum powder, cement dust, drain cleaner, and countless other poisons? Yet the drugs on the streets are regularly cut with these and many more substances. Fatal overdoses are common. No one can judge how much he or she is taking or what they are taking. The health of our citizens is also at increased risk with the continued legislation of drugs. HIV is devastating the rates of IV drug users, and it's the taxpayers who wind up picking up the tab for almost all their medical costs. We have become so obsessed with the war on drugs that we have even made it illegal to hand out free, clean needles to IV drug users. Instead, we indirectly allow them to become infected and then pass it on to other users, their loved ones, and their children. Since street drugs are not properly labeled because they are illegal, drug users never know how potent a drug is going to be. Someone you know may have purchased pot repeatedly from a dealer that looked the same as previous pot, but it was way more potent than previous pot. Other hardcore drug users may take the same dose as they had before, but this time it may have been cut differently, resulting in an underdose, overdose, or death. If these drugs were monitored similarly to other drugs and labeled properly and consistently, individuals could make more informed and responsible decisions about their drug use, similar to smokers and drinkers. Mandatory sentencing was introduced by the anti-drug lobby to get rid of crime. They believe that if you make the punishment for drugs so ridiculous, people will stop using them. Obviously, with the continued rise in drug use, something is wrong. Not only is mandatory sentencing not working, but consider its extraordinary byproduct. Individuals who were once functional members of society are left to rot in prison for years, making them less functional when they are released. Families are broken up, causing an increase in the number of dysfunctional families and children without both parents. Ask yourself if it is worth destroying the life of an individual, his and her significant other, children, etc., just because the person got caught smoking pot. Real supporters of family values would say no. Violent criminals are being released onto our streets while these non-hazardous members of society sit unjustly punished. The drug offenders sit in jails thinking about their families, their children, skateboarding and dancing at an all-night party, while the guy thinking about robbing a 7-Eleven or shooting up all the old people at a local Arby's is now behind you in line at Taco Bell. In 1994, it was reported that the war on drugs results in the incarceration of 1 million Americans each year. Of the related drug arrests, about 225,000 are for simple possession of marijuana, the fourth most common cause of arrest in the United States. The social consequences of the drug war have been widely criticized by such organizations as the American Civil Liberties Union as being racially biased against minorities and disproportionately responsible for the exploding United States prison population. According to a report commissioned by the Drug Policy Alliance and released in March 2006 by the Justice Policy Institute, American drug-free zones are ineffective at keeping youth away from drugs and instead create strong racial disparity in the judicial system. Since illegal drug use has been blamed for feeding the growth of the underclass, this has caused prohibitionists to call for further increase in certain drug crime penalties, even though some of these disrupt opportunities for drug users to advance in society in socially acceptable ways. It has been argued by Blumenson and Nielsen that this causes a vicious cycle, since penalties for drug crimes among youth almost always involve semi-permanent removal from opportunities for education, and later involve creation for criminal records, which make employment far more difficult. That the war on drugs has in fact resulted in the creation of a permanent underclass of people who have few education or job opportunities, often as a result of being punished for drug offense, which in turn have resulted from attempts to earn a living in spite of having no education or job opportunities. A lawsuit filed in 1986 by two journalists represented by the Christic Institute alleged that the Central Intelligence Agency and other parties are engaged in criminal acts, including financing the purchasing of arms with the proceeds of cocaine sales. Senator John Kerry in 1988 was U.S. Senate Committee for Foreign Relations report on Contra drug links concluded that members of the U.S. State Department who provided support for the Contras were involved in drug trafficking. Elements of the Contras themselves not only received financial and material assistance from drug traffickers. The report went on to say that the Contra drug links included payments to drug traffickers by the U.S. State Department of funds authorized by the Congress for humanitarian assistance to the Contras. In some cases, after the traffickers have been indicted by federal law enforcement agency or